You spend a year and a half building something. You draft it, revise it, break it twice, and fix it 3 times. Stay late on a Tuesday in November because you actually care about the outcome. And then your manager takes it into a room you weren't invited to, presents it like it was their idea, and comes back with a thumbs up emoji in a Slack message that says, "Stakeholders love the direction." You get a follow-up in your one-on-one. It says, "Good work this quarter. You are 23. You are making $54,000 a year, and something very quiet happens inside you. You stop trying. Not loudly, not dramatically. You show up Monday, you answer the emails, you attend the stand-ups, but the part of you that was actually building something, that part clocks out permanently. And you start thinking about what else you could be doing. Now, here's the thing. That specific moment, that quiet snapping point, is happening right now inside thousands of companies simultaneously. Quit rates among workers under 30 have been elevated for 4 straight years. Internal engagement surveys at large corporations are showing Gen Z employees of the lowest sustained engagement levels ever recorded. Companies are spending somewhere between $15,000 and $30,000 per head to replace a single junior employee, and they genuinely cannot figure out why those employees keep leaving. Some of them are running task forces on it. Some of them hired consultants. The consultant said culture. They always say culture. And when HR conducts exit interviews, which to be fair, most people lie through because they still need the reference, the answer is always some version of "I didn't feel valued" or "my contributions weren't recognized." And the corporate world hears that and thinks, soft generation, fragile, needs too much validation. That's a therapy problem, not a management problem. But here is the actual question. What if "I didn't feel recognized" is one of the most precise economic statements a young worker can make in 2026? What if quitting over credit has nothing to do with feelings? What if it's just math? We're going to explain how credit actually works inside corporate systems, why stealing it is structurally incentivized, not by bad people but by predictable incentive design, and why Gen Z's response to it, which reads as entitlement or fragility to most people over 40, is actually a completely rational repricing of the employment contract. And we're going to explain why the whole dynamic is getting weirder, not better, and what you can actually do about it if you're the person watching your work disappear into someone else's performance review. The best framework I know for understanding all of this is a scoreboard. Not a metaphor called scoreboard, an actual one, like in a sports game. At any given moment, there is a scoreboard and it tells everyone watching who is winning, by how much, and who deserves credit for the points on it. In sports, the player who scores the point controls the score. You either made the basket or you didn't. The camera saw it, the crowd saw it, it's verifiable. There's no ambiguity in who did what. The scoreboard records it correctly because the system has no incentive to do otherwise. Corporate environments do not work like that. In a corporation, the scoreboard is a presentation deck, a performance review, a one-on-one meeting with your manager's manager that you weren't in, and crucially, someone else holds the marker. Your manager holds the marker. So, here's what I need you to understand before we go any further. The conflict between Gen Z workers and credit-stealing managers isn't really about personality types or generational values or participation trophies or any of the other things people say on LinkedIn. It's about one thing: who controls the scoreboard. Because whoever controls the scoreboard controls the narrative, and whoever controls the narrative controls the money. Every single dynamic we're going to talk about today flows from that one fact. Let's start from the beginning. Here is what most people think the employment contract is. You show up, you work hard, you produce results, and those results get rewarded proportionally. Input, output, reward. Clean and linear. It's a simple model and it feels intuitively correct, which is exactly why so many people are confused when it doesn't match their actual experience. That is not what it is. What it actually is, and I want to be precise here, is a 2-step system. Step 1, you produce results. Step 2, someone with more organizational status than you translates those results into the company's language and presents them upward. You do not participate in Step 2. You were not designed to participate in Step 2. Your job is to feed the machine at Step 1 and trust that Step 2 happens correctly. The problem is obvious the second you say it out loud. The person running step 2 has their own incentives. And their incentive is not to accurately represent who did what. Their incentive is to maximize their own performance signals, which means when your work is excellent, it becomes a resource. A resource they can deploy in the direction that benefits them most. This is not malice in most cases. I want to be really clear about that because this conversation goes sideways immediately when people start making it about bad individuals. It's not about bad people. It is about a system that creates completely predictable behavior. If you put almost in the position of middle manager who's being evaluated on team output and has full control over how that output is narrated upward, most of them will over time drift towards taking more credit than they deserve. The system selects for that behavior. It rewards it. It penalizes the alternative. Think about it from the manager's perspective. If they go upstairs and say Marcus on my team built this, two things happen. 1. Marcus gets visibility with senior leadership. 2. The manager gets to look like a great talent identifier, but not necessarily a great performer. Their personal score on the scoreboard goes up a little. But if they go upstairs and present Marcus's work as their own synthesis, their vision, their strategic direction, their initiative, their personal score goes up a lot. And Marcus gets nothing but a group thank you in the next all hands. This is not exceptional behavior. This is the default behavior that the corporate incentive structure produces. It has always happened in every company, in every industry, at every level of the hierarchy all the way up. What's new is not the behavior. What's new is that people are starting to recognize it clearly, name it precisely, and respond to it with actual economic logic instead of just vague resentment. And here is the part that matters financially. In a standard corporate career progression, the difference between being visible and being invisible to senior leadership is not a small raise. It is not 1.5% versus 2% at annual review. The difference between being on the radar of decision makers at year 2 versus being invisible at year 2 is in most mid to large companies a 2 to 3 year gap in promotion timing. And the difference between being promoted at year 3 versus year 5 is, over a 30-year career, easily somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 in total compensation. That's before you factor in equity bonuses and the compounding effect of having a higher base salary as the foundation for every future negotiation you ever enter. So, when a Gen Z employee says, "My manager takes credit for my work," they are not just expressing a feeling about fairness. They are describing a situation where someone is literally extracting hundreds of thousands of dollars of career value from them in slow motion with full institutional support, in broad daylight, and calling it leadership. That's the machine. Most people are inside it without ever being shown the diagram. I want to pause here because I think it's important to briefly capture the exact energy of the standard corporate response to this dynamic. Manager: I always give credit to my team. The team collectively silence. Manager: I literally said, "Great work, everyone," in the all hands. Everyone, that's it. Everyone. We built this. We figured it out. We delivered a really strong quarter. Sir, you are a single individual. The only we in this scenario is you and the work of someone who is currently updating their resume at 11 p.m. and wondering why their merit increase was 2%. Everyone is not a name. Everyone is what you say when you want the credit and the optics of generosity simultaneously. It is the most efficient credit laundering vehicle ever invented, and it has been running tax-free inside corporate America for decades. Anyway, okay, level 2. Because the basic mechanics are just the beginning. The thing nobody talks about, the damage from credit theft, isn't just about not getting promoted fast enough. The second-order effects are significantly worse, and they compound in a direction most people don't anticipate. When your manager consistently presents your work as their own strategic initiative, what happens is not simply that you lose credit. What happens is that you become invisible to the power structure that exists above your manager. You become a name in a spreadsheet. You become one of the team. You become the person described as really solid when someone asks about you, which is the corporate equivalent of fine, I guess. And here's why this matters mechanically, not emotionally. Decisions about compensation, promotion, interesting projects, and internal mobility are almost entirely made by people who have either met you directly or heard your name associated with positive outcomes. There's genuinely the whole game above a certain organizational level. It is not your performance review score. It is not how many tickets you closed or how many sprints you shipped. It is whether the right person has your name in their head attached to something they remember as good. Credit theft does not just take your current recognition. It prevents future recognition from accruing at all. It is not like someone stealing $20 from your wallet. It is more like someone quietly canceling your credit card so that every future purchase you try to make, every future opportunity you try to capture, simply gets declined and you don't even know why because no one tells you the card doesn't work. You just keep getting the word no dressed up in corporate language and eventually you stop applying for things. Now layer on the psychological response to this because that is the part that makes it a systemic crisis rather than just an individual inconvenience. When you consistently do excellent work and consistently receive no recognition for it, you undergo a very specific internal recalibration. Your brain is not stupid. It runs a reasonably clean cost-benefit model, and over time it notices a pattern: high effort, no differential reward. So, it adjusts. It begins producing lower effort because lower effort produces the same outcome, which is nothing, maybe a group Slack message. The academic term for this is learned helplessness. The corporate term for it is quiet quitting, which became a whole media cycle in 2022 as if it were a new invention. The accurate term for it is a rational response to a broken feedback loop. It is not character failure, it is calibration. And here's the structural wreckage. Companies measure output, not engagement. So, what the data shows is this employee's output has declined. Conclusion: poor performer. They don't promote them. They may put them on a performance improvement plan. They may eventually let them go. Meanwhile, the actual cause, the credit theft that broke the feedback loop, never shows up anywhere in the data. The manager who caused the problem looks fine, maybe even proactive because now they are managing out a poor performer and handling it decisively. Their score on the scoreboard actually goes up. They get credit for addressing the very decline they created. The system has successfully punished the person it harmed and rewarded the person who did the harming. And the company paid for this outcome. That's not a metaphor. That is a description of the actual cash flows involved. Let me give you a specific number because I think it makes the stakes concrete. Workforce analytics research consistently shows that employees who go unrecognized for a 12-month period are roughly 3 times more likely to leave within the subsequent 6 months compared to employees who receive regular, visible credit for their contributions. The replacement cost for an entry-level role runs between $15,000 and $30,000 when you include recruiting time, onboarding, and ramp. For a senior technical or specialized role, you can easily be looking at $100,000 or more in total replacement cost. So, the organization is quite literally paying tens of thousands of dollars to avoid giving someone credit. That is a spectacularly expensive efficiency to maintain, and yet it persists because the scoreboard is controlled by the person who benefits from it. That is the second-order wreckage. The first hit is on the worker, the second hit is on the company, and neither of them is measuring it correctly because the scoreboard, always back to the scoreboard, only captures what the person holding the marker chooses to write. If you're watching this and it's landing differently than the usual content about work and money, that's because I'm not trying to sell you a mindset or a morning routine. I'm trying to show you the wiring underneath the thing. If you want more of that, subscribe. That's what this channel is. Now, here is the part that most people genuinely miss. Even people who understand everything in levels 1 and 2 still tend to frame credit as primarily an emotional resource, recognition, feeling valued, psychological safety, and so their proposed solutions are also emotional in nature. Have a direct conversation with your manager, learn to self-advocate, set clear expectations at the start of a project. Those are not wrong, but they are operating at the wrong level of the problem. Because credit in a career context is not primarily an emotional resource. It is a financial asset, a highly illiquid, difficult to trade, but very real financial asset. And once you see it that way, a whole set of behaviors that look irrational, Gen Z workers walking away from perfectly decent salaries, treating employment like a temporary contract, prioritizing personal brand over job security, suddenly start making perfect sense. Here is what I mean specifically. In a knowledge economy company, what actually determines your compensation over time? Technically, your skills and your output, but in practice, what drives your pay trajectory is your reputation signal to the market, both internal and external. Your reputation signal is essentially a running narrative that says this person produces this kind of value at this level of quality and reliability. The stronger and more visible that signal, the more leverage you have in every compensation negotiation you ever enter. It is supply and demand with one extra variable, which is visibility. Your reputation signal is built from three main inputs. 1. What you actually produce. 2. Who sees it and connects it directly to your name. 3. How consistently those first two things align over time, creating a track record that is legible to future decision makers. Credit theft specifically attacks input 2. You can produce extraordinary work, but if the person between you and the decision makers is filtering your name off of every deliverable, your reputation signal does not build. You are pouring value into a container with a hole in the bottom. You work harder and the container stays empty. Eventually, you stop pouring. Now, here is where the generational shift becomes genuinely interesting and where the analysis gets more surprising. Previous generations, people who entered the workforce between 1980 and roughly 2010, operated in an environment where your professional reputation was mostly internal. Who knew about your work was largely determined by your organizational relationships and your manager's goodwill. External reputation was slow to build and difficult to create without institutional backing and mostly irrelevant to your day-to-day compensation. So, the strategic advice for dealing with credit-stealing managers was build internal allies, manage up deliberately, be strategic about your internal relationships, find a sponsor who will advocate for you, work within the scoreboard system. Try to get a better position relative to the person holding the marker. That advice is not bad, but it has a ceiling because you are still entirely dependent on the scoreboard that someone else controls. Gen Z entered the workforce in an environment where external reputation is instantly buildable and directly monetizable. That is the actual shift, not values, not psychology, infrastructure. The infrastructure for building a professional reputation that is completely independent of your employer has gone from expensive and gated to cheap and open in the span of roughly 1 decade. If I build a product feature at my job and my manager presents it as their own, I lose internal credit. That is real and it cost me real money over a career. But here is what I can also do now in parallel without anyone's permission. I can document the process publicly. I can write about how I think about the problem. I can build direct market signal for the skill itself, completely bypassing the internal scoreboard. My external reputation, which is directly tied to freelance rates, consulting opportunities, job offers from other companies, and my ability to negotiate, does not care what my manager wrote in the presentation deck. It cares what I can demonstrate in public, verifiably, in a format I control. In other words, the scoreboard inside the company no longer has a monopoly on scoring. And Gen Z, whether consciously or not, has been operating from this insight. They did not articulate it as I am building external reputation capital as a systematic hedge against internal credit theft. They articulated it as this is stupid and I'm not putting up with it. But, the behavior is the same, the outcome is the same, and the economic logic underneath is identical. Here is what should be alarming to anyone currently managing a team. The workers who are most capable of building external reputation, the technically sharp, the creative, the prolific, are the exact same workers who have the most outside options. They are the highest leverage people to keep, and they are the most sensitive to credit dynamics because they understand at some level that their work is proof of concept to the broader market. When you take their credit internally, you are not just taking a feeling from them. You are forcing them to choose between staying inside a scoreboard you control or building their own. Most of the capable ones will build their own, and then they will leave, and you will spend $25,000 replacing them and wonder what happened to your great team culture. Let me make this concrete with a specific scenario because I think the abstract can drift into theory without numbers. Marcus is 24. He works at a mid-sized technology company as a product analyst. He makes $67,000 a year. He's been there just under 2 years. In his second year, Marcus identifies a structural gap in the company's customer retention model. He builds an analysis from scratch, pulls the raw data, structures the argument through several iterations, designs a proposed solution with projected impact numbers. It takes him approximately 6 weeks of serious, sustained, high-quality work. His manager, let's call her Sarah, reviews the output, provides some directional feedback, adds 3 slides to the front of the deck, and presents the entire thing to the VP of Product in a quarterly business review. In that meeting, she says, "The team has been digging into this, and here's what we found, and here's where I think we should take it." Marcus is not in the room. He does not know the meeting happened until he sees it referenced in the meeting notes. 2 weeks later, Sarah receives a discretionary bonus of $8,000 for strategic initiative. Marcus receives a great quarter keep it up note in his 1-on-1 and a 2% merit increase, $2,680 extra per year before taxes, about $243 per month. Let's be exact about the delta. Sarah captured $8,000 of direct financial benefit from Marcus's 6 weeks of work. Marcus captured the annualized equivalent of $2,680 for the same work. But the medium-term financial story is significantly worse than that immediate difference because Marcus was not in that room. The VP of Product does not know his name. When a senior analyst role opens up 8 months later, the VP thinks of people she has met or heard about. Marcus is not one of them. Sarah recommends a different internal candidate she has been managing up on her own behalf. Marcus applies through the standard internal process, receives a polite decline, and is told he needs more experience with cross-functional stakeholder management, which is a phrase that means nothing but sounds like feedback. Marcus has now been economically passed not just on the bonus, but on the entire promotion track. The compounding begins immediately. The new senior analyst starts at $91,000. Marcus stays at $69,380. The gap in year 1 is $21,620. Over 5 years, accounting for modest raises on both tracks. That total compensation gap is likely to exceed $135,000, possibly significantly more depending on bonus structure and equity. All of that gap traces back to one presentation Marcus was not invited to. Now, here is what Marcus does differently in year 3. He begins writing publicly about his analytical approach, not in a look at my work way, in a here is how I think about retention modeling as a discipline way. He publishes 2 long-form pieces. He joins a professional Slack community for product analysts. Someone in that community works at a scale-up that is hiring. They recommend Marcus specifically because of one of the pieces he wrote. Marcus interviews, negotiates with a competing offer he generated through that same network, and lands a senior analyst role at a different company for $88,000, a remote work arrangement, and a small equity package with a 4-year vest. He does not leave because he is angry at Sarah. He leaves because the external scoreboard started scoring him correctly, and the number it produced was 30% higher than what the internal scoreboard was offering, with no manager in the middle holding the marker. The ending of the story is straightforward. Marcus makes more money, but the more interesting part is the company's side of the ledger. They spent somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 finding, hiring, and onboarding a replacement analyst. They lost the person who built a retention model that, by conservative estimate, helped preserve several $100,000 in customer revenue that year. That impact never appeared on Marcus's scorecard. It appeared on Sarah's. Sarah got the credit. Sarah got the bonus. Sarah is still there. The company has a talent retention problem they cannot explain. The system broke the person who was working, paid to replace them, and called it a bad hiring decision. I want to pause again. I want to briefly capture the other classic managerial response to this specific type of scenario because it is genuinely one of my favorite things. I always make sure to credit my team. I literally use we constantly. We, that's the move. We built this. We identified the opportunity. We delivered a strong quarter. I want to be very precise about what we is doing grammatically and financially in this sentence. We is a credit dissolution vehicle. You take a specific individual contribution, run it through the first-person plural, and it comes out the other side as a collective achievement with no identifiable author. It is essentially a financial instrument for converting your employees' career capital into your own performance narrative, except it is completely legal and widely considered good management style. We is not credit. We is credit laundering with excellent optics. Anyway, here is the reversal. Because I've been building toward it and I want to say it directly, you think the problem is that Gen Z expects too much recognition, that they were raised in a participation trophy culture and cannot handle the reality that corporate work sometimes goes unacknowledged. That they need to be more resilient. That they need to understand how the game works and stop being precious about it. That is the wrong problem. The actual problem is that the corporate structure has created a system in which the most valuable work is systematically misattributed, and it has done so for decades. And previous generations either did not notice or did not have enough mobility to respond to it meaningfully. Gen Z is not more fragile than previous generations. They are more mobile. They have better information about the fact that the internal scoreboard is structurally biased. And they have genuine liquid accessible alternatives for building their score elsewhere. The right question is not why Gen Z won't adapt to the system. The right question is why the system is designed to misattribute value, how it has sustained itself this long, and what happens to it now that the walls have come down. This sustained itself because information was asymmetric and mobility was low. A worker who didn't know the market rate for their skills, who couldn't easily build an external reputation, and who needed the reference letter from their current employer could not afford to respond aggressively to a broken internal scoreboard. They had to work within the system even when the system was working against them. That constraint kept the credit structure stable for a very long time. Both of those constraints are dissolving quickly, and when the walls come down on an enclosed system, things move fast. Faster than most organizational structures can adapt to. Let me give you a framework here because I find it useful and I think it clarifies what the actual range of responses looks like. There are 3 levels of how people deal with the credit problem inside organizations. Most people never make it past level 1. Level 1 is the emotional response. Something feels deeply unfair. You are angry or disengaged or both. You complain to trusted colleagues. You write something vague on social media. You leave a carefully worded Glassdoor review at 11 p.m. that you edit 3 times before submitting. Nothing changes. The manager still holds the marker. The scoreboard still says what it says. Your career trajectory is still what it is. Level 1 is understandable and almost completely useless as a strategy. Level 2 is the strategic response. This is where things get more productive. You start documenting your contributions in writing consistently. You find legitimate pathways to get direct visibility with decision makers above your manager, presenting in broader forums, sending well-timed updates, volunteering for cross-functional projects that expose your work to a wider set of eyes. You build internal allies who can reference your specific contributions independently of your manager's narrative. You make it structurally difficult for your work to be absorbed entirely into someone else's story because there is a paper trail. There are multiple witnesses. There is a public record inside the organization. Most sophisticated career advice operates at level 2 and it is genuinely useful. It works to a point. The limit is that you are still playing on the company scoreboard. You are still in a system where the marker is held by someone whose interests do not fully align with yours. You have reduced their power, but you have not escaped the fundamental constraint. Level 3 is the structural response. This is where the interesting people are. You build external proof of work that does not require internal validation. You position yourself so that your professional reputation in the broader market is legible and buildable independently of who your employer is or what your manager says about you. You price your time at what the external market offers, which is typically significantly higher than what the internal market produces without years of visibility accumulation. And you make all career decisions where you work, for whom, under what structure, based on a clear-eyed calculation of is this environment building or destroying my external reputation capital? Is this environment one where the work I do is associated with my name in some durable, portable, verifiable way? Or is it a place where my best work gets absorbed and redistributed? At level 3, you are not playing defense against credit theft. You are operating in a system where credit theft inside any single organization is largely irrelevant to your larger trajectory because the scoreboard that matters most to your long-term financial outcomes is one you control. Your name is on the body of work. No manager can retroactively edit that. No one-on-one meeting between your manager and their VP can touch it. Most Gen Z workers who get labeled difficult or entitled or insufficiently committed are hovering somewhere between level 1 and level 2. They are angry about the right thing but using the wrong tools. The ones who are actually thriving, the ones who seem strangely unbothered by organizational politics, who have visible alternatives at all times, who don't seem to need the performance review to feel okay, those people are almost always operating at level 3. Not because they are angrier, not because they are louder, because they are building a different scoreboard, one with their own marker. Let me zoom out once more before we land because I think the macro picture matters and it adds a layer that most of this conversation misses. The credit problem in corporate environments is at its structural root an information asymmetry problem. Someone in the middle tier of an organizational hierarchy holds a monopoly on translating ground-level work into the language and narrative understood by decision makers. As long as that monopoly exists and as long as the person holding it has personal incentives that do not align with accurate attribution, value will be systematically misattributed. That is not a bug that can be fixed with better management training or more transparent feedback culture. It is a consequence of how the information flows through the hierarchy. It will always exist to some degree in any multi-level organization. What changes is the cost structure of building alternatives to it. 20 years ago, if you wanted to build a meaningful external professional reputation, you needed institutional backing. You needed to publish through established channels, speak at credentialed conferences, have your name attached to a recognizable firm for long enough that the firm's reputation transferred to you. All of those paths take years. All of them are controlled by gatekeepers who have their own distortions and their own incentives. The friction between I have genuinely valuable skills and the market knows I have genuinely valuable skills was enormous. Today, that friction has dropped by roughly 90%. You can publish your thinking in hours. You can demonstrate technical skills in public repositories. You can build an audience around a specific area of expertise in months, not years, without permission from anyone. The infrastructure for building a professional reputation independently has gone from expensive and restricted to essentially free and open. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a structural transformation in how professional reputation is created and traded in the market. And the first-order consequence of that transformation is exactly what we are observing in the workforce right now. A generation of workers who have real, liquid outside options and who are using those options as a constant calibration instrument against whatever their current employer is offering, including the quality of the attribution environment. When your outside option improves in value, your tolerance for bad internal conditions falls. That is not a value statement or a generational personality trait. That is a basic economic response to a change in the option structure. It would happen to any rational actor in any generation given the same shift in the underlying infrastructure. The difference is that this shift happened to be experienced first and most acutely by people who are currently in their 20s. Now, let me tell you what the companies that are actually retaining their best people are doing differently because it's worth being specific here. They are not paying dramatically more though that helps. The ones who are genuinely solving the retention problem are doing something more targeted. They are fixing the scoreboard. Specifically, they are implementing systems where credit attribution is documented at the project level rather than filtered for a single narrative from the management chain. Individual contributors are scheduled systematic direct exposure to senior leadership not as a favor or a reward but as a structural feature of how work is reviewed. Declining engagement at the team level is treated as an early warning signal for attribution failure, not just a morale issue that can be addressed with a team lunch or a virtual happy hour. They are in other words treating the scoreboard as a functional part of the system that needs to be maintained and kept honest rather than a secondary concern that the manager handles organically. The companies that are not doing this, the ones still saying Gen Z has different values and they need to learn how the real world works, are running a slow, quiet talent drain. The best people leave first, They always have and they always will, and the people who stay are on average the people with the fewest outside options, which is precisely the opposite of the selection effect you want if you are trying to build something. So, let's come back to where we started. Someone builds something for a year and a half, their manager walks into a room, presents their work, takes the applause and sends them a Slack message that says great teamwork. I asked, what if that's not soft? What if it's math? Here is the math summarized cleanly. The credit structure inside most corporate organizations is a system that captures the value of ground-level labor and redistributes it upward through the management hierarchy. It does this not because the people in it are bad, but because the incentive structure makes upward credit flow the rational default behavior. The scoreboard rewards whoever holds the marker. For most of corporate history, workers had no real alternative scoreboard and limited mobility, so the system persisted without serious challenge. Gen Z is the first generation to reach the workforce after the infrastructure for building alternative scoreboards had become genuinely accessible and liquid. They are not reacting emotionally. They are acting on an improved set of options. 3 things to actually do with this. First, audit the attribution environment before accepting any role. Most people do not do this and do not know what signals to look for. Here is what to look for specifically. In interviews, ask, can you describe how individual contributions get communicated to senior leadership? And can you give me an example of someone more than one level below the executive team who got direct recognition for a specific project? Listen very carefully to the answer. If the answer is vague, we have a really collaborative culture. We always celebrate the team. Our leadership is very accessible. Those are red flags. The language of we everywhere with no specific names, no specific projects, no specific moments of individual visibility tells you this is an environment where individual attribution is structurally diffused. Your name will not be on the scoreboard here. You will be invisible. Second, build external proof of work continuously regardless of how good your current role is. This is not a contingency plan. This is the portable version of your career capital. It is the part of your professional reputation that moves with you when you change roles, when your company gets acquired, when your manager leaves, when the whole organizational structure reshuffles and 2 years of internal relationship building evaporates overnight. Document your thinking publicly in some format that is attributable to you. Build a body of work that is legibly yours independent of any employer. The time investment is smaller than most people assume. The long-term insurance value is very high. Third, price your best work accurately. This one sounds obvious and almost nobody actually does it. Your best work, your genuine cognitive output when you are fully engaged working on a problem that actually stretches you, producing something you are proud of, is worth significantly more than your average employment rate. When you place your best work into an environment that absorbs it without attributing it, you are subsidizing someone else's career with your peak output. The correct response to this is not anger. It is not a difficult conversation with HR. The correct response is portfolio management. Find environments, internal or external, employed or independent, where your best work is priced and attributed correctly. Withhold peak output from environments where it is not as a protest, as a rational allocation of a finite and valuable resource, which is the highest quality version of what you are capable of building. The scoreboard analogy, you get to choose which games you play. You cannot always choose who holds the marker inside a specific game, but you can decide how much of your best work you put into any single game, and you can build games on the side where you hold the marker yourself. That is not a motivational reframe. That is the structural description of what the people who are actually winning right now are doing. They are not working harder inside the broken system. They are building a second scoreboard and running both simultaneously until the external one is strong enough to stand alone. That's the leverage, not discipline, not networking events, not asking for more recognition in your one-on-one. The leverage is having more than one scoreboard so that no single system has a monopoly on your score. If you want to keep going deeper on how these structures actually work and how to build around them, subscribe. That's what I'm here for.